Hello, and welcome to this webinar delivered by the Cabinet Office's Border and Protocol Delivery Group. This is intended to help traders and other businesses understand how to trade with the European Union now that the transition period is over. We will be talking about both imports and exports and pointing you to where you can access further information. This is intended as a general overview, and you may need to seek further guidance. This can be found at www.gov.uk. And there are links in the slides that will be presented on the web page along with this presentation that you can follow. So let's look at what's changed. The UK has now left the European Union Customs Union. And although a free trade agreement is in place, this means that for all GB EU movements, customs formalities are now in place as of the 1st of January. If you're selling goods to or buying goods from the EU, then you will have to follow new procedures. These include making customs declaration, paying duties and VAT, and complying with any other relevant regimes. So, for example, if you're moving animal products, plants or items covered by international agreements, you may need to follow specific requirements. It's really important to understand that if you're moving one package or 1,000 packages, this will apply to you. Now, the government recognises that businesses have had a lot to deal with at the moment with border changes and with COVID-19. And as such, we're taking a pragmatic approach and staging the introductions of controls over a 6-month period. But there are things that you need to do now. It's really important to understand that the European Union has already imposed full import controls, and you will need to comply with their requirements immediately. Every export from one country is an import to another and vice versa. And as such, even if you've done everything that you need to do, if the company you're trading with or their representative hasn't completed the processes they need to on the other side of the border, your goods could be held up. Now, I said the UK was introducing customs controls following a staged approach, and this slide shows the 3 stages we're going through. Now, from January onwards, for standard goods, which is the majority of most goods, you could defer declarations for up to 6 months. This is a rolling 6-month period until the end of June. You do, however, need to keep a record of the goods so that a declaration can be made later. There's also the ability to defer payments of duties, etc. for 6 months. Now, you don't have to defer declarations or payments, but these options are available to you if they're helpful for your business. We won't be requiring any import, safety and security declarations initially, but high-risk veterinary and phytosanitary goods will need to be physically inspected at their final destination. Note, however, that for controlled goods, for example, excise items, these do require a declaration and controls from the start of January. Now, in April, we'll be making some changes to products of animal origin, high-risk foods not of animal origin, and plants, where you will be required to pre-register all imports. And then from the 1st of July, we will be bringing in full customs controls, which will mean the following. You'll be required to make safety and security declarations. You will need to make full customs declarations, or if you're authorised to do so, use simplified procedures, and you will need to pay any relevant tariffs at the point of importation. And for sanitary, veterinary and phytosanitary goods, these will be controlled at GB border control points. So as you can see, there is a phased approach to controls, but you do need to do things now. So let's look at where the detail can be found. It's obviously a complex subject, so we produced a border operating model, which, if you're moving goods to or from the EU, is essential reading. This is available on gov.uk, and there is a link on this slide. However, if you Google border operating model, it will be one of the top results. A new version of this was published on the 31st of December, which reflects the fact that the UK and the European Union have agreed a free trade agreement. It is the 3rd version, and in each case we've taken into account feedback from industry to ensure that the content is as clear and as helpful as possible. I've also added links on this slide to guidance about moving goods to Northern Ireland, though this webinar is primarily focused on GB EU traffic. So let's have a look at a summary of the changes that took place at the start of this year. And we'll start by looking at exporting from GB into the European Union. UK traders need to complete an export declaration before moving goods to the European Union. Whoever is purchasing the goods in the EU will need to complete an import declaration in their country. Depending on what you're moving, you might need to apply for specific licenses or permits. So if you're moving food, you'll need export health certificates. If you're moving plants and seeds, you'll need phytosanitary certificates. And I've added links on this slide that takes you to guidance to those declarations and certificates so you can see exactly what you need to do. Now let's look at what you're doing if you need to import goods from the GB into the EU. Now, I mentioned that the government's put in place a phased approach to imports, but there's still some things you'll need to do now. Basic customs requirements will need to be complied with, but you will have up to 6 months to submit customs declaration to HMRC for standard goods, which is most goods. While applicable tariffs will need to be paid, most traders will be able to defer payments until the customs declaration has been made, which gives them time to adjust to the new requirements. Safety and security declarations will also not be required on imports for 6 months for all goods. Now, we will be making some changes, as I mentioned, from April for some food and high-risk plant products, and I will talk about those later in this presentation. But the majority of UK import controls come into effect from the 1st of July, and it's those I'm going to touch on now. From this point, traders moving goods between the EU and GB, whatever those goods are, will have to make full declarations and pay tariffs, if applicable, at the point of importation. You will also, from July, need to make full safety and security declarations. Let's have a look at the steps you need to follow. We've created a range of tools and guides to take you through these steps, and I've put links to various resources on this slide. These include step-by-step guides, videos, process maps, and a series of webinars that take you through the process, and we will be continuing to add to those webinars. If you haven't already done so, please do look at these resources, as there's a great deal of assistance available to you through these. And in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so that set out some of the new steps you'll need to follow if you're going to trade with the EU. But there's some basic things you'll need to do first before you can start. So we're going to look at them now. Before you can do anything, you will need an EORI number, an Economic Operator Reference Identification number. I'm going to talk you through what you need this for. There's some links on this slide that will show you how to get one if you need it. You can apply online and it's free. Businesses exporting goods from or importing goods into the UK need an EU. No, they don't. I'll start again. And in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so that set out some of the new steps that you will need to follow if you're going to trade with the EU. But there's some basic things you will need to do first before you can start. So we're going to look at those now. Before you do anything, you're going to need an EORI number, an Economic Operator Reference Identification number. I'm going to talk you through what you need this for. There's some links on this slide that will show you how to get one if you need it. You can apply online and it's free. Businesses exporting goods from or importing goods into the UK need a UK EORI number. A UK EORI number starts with GB followed by 12 digits. If you're VAT registered, this will include your VAT registration number. So I said you can register for this online, and you need one to do all of the following: to lodge a customs declaration, to submit an entry summary declaration, to lodge an exit summary declaration or a temporary storage declaration in order to act as a carrier for the purposes of transport, or to act as a carrier connected to the customs system who wishes to receive notifications regarding the lodging or amendment of entry summary declarations. And for the EU, an EU EORI is required to submit declarations on the continent. The business you're trading with in the EU will normally be responsible for submitting the declaration to EU customs, and so will need an EU EORI number if they don't want to have one already. If you've got regular customers, you might want to check with them, especially if they normally only deal with EU-based companies. However, if you're going to be responsible for submitting declarations on both sides of the border, you're going to need both a UK and an EU EORI number. Like a UK number, you can get an EU EORI number online. Now, a person or business needs to be established in the UK or EU in order to meet certain customs rules. So this includes being able to apply for various authorisations and simplifications. So, for example, special procedures, AEO authorisation, or being able to make simplified declarations. In the UK, you might need to produce the following types of information. So, a certificate of registration, details of where you employ staff and what they do, the premises that you own or operate from, details of any contracts, orders, etc. that are held or issued by the business, and proof that the business has its own accounts. EU establishment means it must be registered in the EU and involved in the operation. So that could be a freight forwarder or a carrier. They must have an EU VAT number. And it's worth noting that a UK business will need an EU VAT registered company to act as an EU exporter or as a representative. I've added a link on this slide that gives further details on being UK established. Now, as I've said, the UK has secured a zero tariff, zero quota free trade agreement with the EU. However, there are rules of origin within that free trade agreement that need to be met, and you will want to familiarise yourself with these if you're moving goods with components that are not exclusively GB or EU sourced. Customs controls will still apply. It's also really important to agree at the outset who is going to be responsible for customs and other requirements at the various stages of the process. Now, there's an international set of trading terms called Incoterms, often used to agree this, and I've added a link to an excellent website on this slide that can take you through to this if you're not familiar with them. There's a few other things that you need to think about as well. Depending on what you're moving, this might be relevant to you. So, for example, are you buying or selling controlled goods? So is it an excise item like tobacco or alcohol? Is it an endangered species, for example, something covered by the CITES Convention? We've added a full list of controlled goods in Annex C of the Border Operating Model. If you're dealing in these, you may well need to comply with certain other controls and checks. If you're moving products of animal origin or animal byproducts, then you will need to obtain an export health certificate before you do so. The European Union are taking this requirement seriously. Your export health certificate is required and it must be properly and fully completed. I've added a link on this slide on how to get an export health certificate. If you're not using an intermediary, you might need to pre-register with certain EU systems. So if you're dealing in chemicals, you might need to register with a REACH. If you're moving foodstuffs, with Traces before you can start selling. If you're bringing in live animals, animal products and some high-risk food and feeds not of animal origin into Great Britain, you might need to register with IPAFs. You should note that in some circumstances, if you're selling certain food products, for example, to the EU, your premises might require authorisation from the EU before you can export. And I've added a link to further information. You should also note that food products being sold now the UK has exited the transition period will have to be labelled correctly, and we've added full guidance on what can be expected. It's very complex, as you can see, and given the complexities of importing and exporting, you might want to think about hiring a person or a business to deal with customs for you. So, for example, a freight forwarder, an agent or broker, or a fast parcel operator. The decision on this has to be one that's right for your business. And so we produced a short film which will help you decide whether or not it is right for you. And if it is, we've provided a full list of customs agents and fast parcel operators on gov.uk, and the link is given on this slide. You also might want to look at setting up a duty deferment account if you're setting into the UK. And that will allow you to defer payments of certain duties until a later date. And again, we've provided guidance on whether this is right for you or not on gov.uk at the link on this slide. We can also help you speak to an expert. BEIS, the business department, runs a number of business support lines. Now, the one you need to call will depend on where you're based, because there's a different one based in each of the constituent countries of the United Kingdom, and the numbers are given on this slide. It's worth noting that HMRC also operates some helplines. So there is an import-export general inquiries number, which I've given on this slide. You can talk to an advisor online through a web chat about general import and export queries, or you can use a contact form to send a question about imports, exports and customs release. If you've got a question about vehicle operator licensing, the DVSA number is given here. And if it's about driving licenses, we've given the number for DVLA. The government is also operating 2 online forums where businesses and traders can access key information and can ask questions directly to government policy officials. HMRC operate their community forum for customs and tax related queries at the link on this slide. And my team in the Border and Protocol Delivery Group runs the Transition Forum website for any non-customs and tax related queries. We've also added a lengthy set of FAQs on these forums, so there's a really good chance your question's been asked already. So please do take a look at the FAQs. You may well find the answer is there already. If it's not, please do take the opportunity to ask a question and we will provide the answer to you.